hello, Lloyd. Been waiting around?
Boy, I'll say, Doc, I've read all your ancient magazines and toothpaste ads twice.
Well, I've been waiting for you for a long time, too. You haven't had your teeth looked at in months, my friend.
That goes double, Doc. You haven't brought your car in to be checked for a long time either. Maybe you've got a spark plug that needs pulling.
Oh, you fellas probably don't do anything but lift the hood, fiddle with a couple of wires, and then call it fixed.
Not at our place, we don't. We make tests to locate possible trouble just like you do. And we've got darn good mechanics who know how to fix it. We do only the work that's necessary. That's how we save customers needless expense.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Maybe you boys can put your finger on the trouble in my car.
Why, what's wrong with it, Doc?
I'm not getting the mileage I ought to. I'm buying too darn much gas. Another thing, it doesn't seem to have as much pep as it used to. I'll bring it in to you tomorrow morning. But right now, let me see if I can put my finger on whatever ails your tooth.
Oh, okay. Hi, Doc. Don't bother getting out. We're going to hook up this gas mileage tester and road test your car before we do anything else. Well, you're right, Doc. The gas mileage is low. The car is sluggish, too. Well, let's get back to the shop. Doc, this is Nick. He's going to give us a hand on your car. Nick, Dr. White.
Morning, Doctor. Hello, Nick. Say, what have you got there?
Oh, this? It's a compression gauge, Doctor. It gives us the pressure in each cylinder. Well, that's important to you, by the way, because cylinder pressure affects economy and performance.
Is that where you usually begin, at the cylinders?
Not always. Depends on what the road test tells us.
Well, that makes sense. I don't x-ray a patient's teeth every time he comes in, either.
There's really no one best way to track down the various things that affect car performance, Doc. You see...
Telephone for Dr. White. Telephone for Dr. White.
That's for me.
You can catch it over there at my desk, Doctor.
I know what it is, Lloyd. I've got to get back to the office.
But we've only started to test your car.
Well, you keep right on. I've got to run, but I'll be back later to pick up the car. Tell your operator I'm on my way, will you?
Okay, Doc. So long.
Why, Ted, what are you doing back here?
I've been here all along. I got no use for them tooth jockeys. You sure he's gone?
Sure, Tech. It's safe now. Say, how about giving us a hand with his car?
Okay. I don't mind his car, but dentists...
Glad you're here, Tech. This job's really got to go right, because the doc gets another crack at me next week.
What's so special about it? Bet it just needs a regular tune-up.
Well, maybe, but sometimes a tune-up isn't the whole answer. But let's check compression first. If we don't have good compression, we certainly won't be able to tune up the engine.
Compression check will tell us a lot, Tech.
It'll help, but let's think about it for a minute. What conditions do we want so that an engine will run right?
Oh, that's simple. First, the engine's got to pull air and gas into the cylinders on the intake stroke. It's important that enough air and gas come in, and that they're mixed in the proper proportions, too.
Right. Then the rings and valves have to seat tight, so the mixture in the cylinder will get squeezed to the right pressure before it's fired.
Now, after the air is compressed, then what?
Oh, then you want it fired by a good hot spark at the right time, so you'll get full power out of the mixture.
In other words, good carburation, good compression, and good ignition. Those are the three essentials of engine efficiency. Now, Nick, what can upset these three conditions?
Well, if your rings or valves are worn, you won't get a good seal in the cylinder. So you'll lose compression, and some of the force of the explosion will blow by. Both things cut down power and economy. Then the head gasket's got to be in good shape, and the spark plug's tight if you want to hold compression.
That's right. Now, how about the carburetor?
Remember, we got the story on what can upset carburetor performance in that meeting a month or so ago. Want me to hit it again?
No, but let's cover the manifold heat control valve.
Yeah, a stuck manifold heat control valve is easy to miss.
Oh, sure, but what harm would it do? It's a gas mileage, that is.
Oh, quite a bit, Nick. As you know, the heat control valve preheats the fuel mixture before it gets to the cylinder. Naturally, the more completely the fuel is vaporized, the more power you get out of it. Because as a vapor, it burns faster, and all of it gets used. Now, if the valve is stuck closed, the mixture won't vaporize enough. There'll be small drops of raw gasoline on the floor of the intake manifold. Gasoline would be drawn into the cylinders, all right, but it might not burn. Instead, that unburned portion would find its way down into the crankcase and dilute the oil.
Suppose the valve stuck open.
Well, that'd be bad, too. Its effect on gas mileage wouldn't be noticeable, but it would affect performance. The mixture would be heated more than necessary, and it would expand so much that not enough of it would reach the cylinders. So the engine would develop less power because each cylinder wouldn't be receiving a normal charge.
I didn't know the heat valve was that important.
It sure is. You've got to be sure it moves freely and comes right up against its stop. You can test the manifold heat control valve with your hand, Nick, if the engine is cold. But there are other points to check too, remember?
Oh, sure, there's the right float level, dirt in the jets, sticking choke valves, and things like that. Oh, yes, and you got to watch for air leaks at the carburetor or at the manifold.
And don't forget that throttle linkage. If it don't work freely, it practically throws gas away. But don't oil it. Oil collects dirt and makes the linkage stick. Check the choke linkage, too, to see that it's free, and see that the choke valve is wide open when the engine is warm.
Okay, Doc. Now, how about ignition, Nick? What causes a weak spark?
Well, dirty plugs are ones that weren't set right, of course, or they might be cracked or burned. Then the distributor points were pitted or set wrong, you wouldn't get a good spark either.
All right, Nick. Besides dirty plugs and burned points, what else causes a poor spark?
Well, there could be shorted wires, or corroded or badly burned distributor rotor, and poor condenser, weak coil, and, of course, a weak battery.
So far, so good. What else?
Why, there might be a loose or corroded connection, or, well, any other form of extra resistance in the ignition case. And you can find these conditions by checking all the circuits, and that I know how to do.
It's a good thing, Nick, because it's important.
Yeah, and somebody would better flip the record, or we'll have another kind of circuit. Say, while you're on ignition, don't forget that timing has a lot to do with gas mileage.
Tech's right. For good economy, you've got to have spark timing advanced to where it leads the piston, so that it fires just before the piston starts to go down.
Oh, sure, if it fires when the piston's at top center, the piston moves part way down the cylinder before the pressure hits it. Only part of the explosive force is used. To use all the power, timing's got to be advanced so that the spark fires just before the piston reaches top center. Then, when the fuel burns and builds up pressure, the pistons hit the instant it's ready to start down.
That's why it's important to check the mechanical and vacuum spark control, right?
Sure, I remember that from our distributor meeting.
All right. Now let's see if our battery's 1225 or better. It's got to have sufficient kick to turn the engine over fast enough to build up compression.
Nothing wrong with this battery. It's right up there.
Good. Suppose we start her up now to bring the engine back up to normal operating temperature.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, Nick, you know any other reasons for warming her up?
Sure. To expand the pistons, rings, and cylinders to their normal operating clearances.
Okay, let's cut her off now and test the compression.
Be sure you take out all the plugs and block that throttle wide open so as the air can come right in.
Okay, boss. Just give me time. All set, Nick? Turn the engine over, and I'll take the highest reading in each cylinder.
Well, looks like the compression's okay, and all the readings are within 10 pounds of each other, like they should be.
Well, that's good. Suppose you clean and check the spark plugs as long as they're out, Nick. I'll take the distributor out and put it on a tester.
What about the valves? You going to check tappet clearances?
Well, ordinarily I wouldn't, if compression is good and the valves are quiet. But in this case, we'd better check them to be sure they're right.
Before I do that and check the plugs, Lloyd, tell me why we didn't make a vacuum test ahead of the compression test.
Well, a vacuum gauge will show up a stuck valve or improper tappet clearances. We could have used vacuum readings, but I found the compression test a good thing to get out of the way before going too far on a tune-up. There's a good story on how to use the vacuum gauge and how to interpret the readings in this reference book, Nick. Look it over when you get the time.
Okay, Lloyd, will do.
Say, Nick, about those plugs, here's a special bending tool that makes it easy to adjust the outer electrode to the proper gap. But don't try bending that center electrode. That's a sure way to break the porcelain. And for Pete's sake, don't leave them in the sandblast cleaner too long. That's another way the porcelain gets damaged.
Right, Tech. The porcelain's soft under that glaze. If it gets worn off, the plug won't stand up under engine temperatures.
Plugs are okay now, Lloyd. All clean and gaps properly set. How are you coming?
Well, not quite through, Nick. Suppose you look over the carburetor.
Okay.
I see you put in new points.
Yeah, I had to. They were pretty badly pitted. The mechanical advance unit checked out okay, but the vacuum advance was off enough to give the car late timing. So I put in thinner washers and brought timing up to specifications.
Distributor cap and rotor look pretty good, Lloyd. No cracks, no corrosion or burning.
Good. Let's oil the wick and the shaft oil hole. Then we can reassemble it and put her back in. Distributor's all right now, Nick.
I bet it was okay even before you looked at it.
Well, all but a few things. The vacuum advance was late. The felt wick and shaft oil hole were dry. So I changed washers, put in a couple of drops of oil, and the rest checked out okay.
You know, that wick's easy to miss. If it isn't oiled every 10,000 miles, the cam might bind, and the governor weights wouldn't work right.
I'll keep that in mind, Tech. You should have watched me zip through that carburetor.
How'd it look?
Pretty fair. I took off the air horn, cleaned out the float bowl, and checked the float level. Float was high, so I lowered it a bit. Oh, yeah, I also blew out the gas line to the tank.
Good. That'll save the doctor some gas. Now, let's hook up the timing light and check the timing.
Okay.
Start the engine again, Lloyd. Nick and I'll watch the timing marks.
All right, Tech. How do those chalk marks line up now?
She's right on the beam.
Okay. Let's tighten the distributor in place, and we'll check the fuel pump pressure with this gauge.
Fuel pump shows about 3.5 pounds.
Good enough. She's okay. Now let's rev up the engine a few times to see if the manifold heat control operates when the engine's hot. Well, looks free and easy on the draw, Nick. Now we'll set the idle mixture with the vacuum gauge.
I can see you birds are just itching to road test this car again.
Sure we are. But you know we've got to check for chassis friction first.
Okay, pal. I just wanted to see that you didn't forget.
Just what do you call chassis friction, Lloyd?
By a dragging brake shoe, a tight wheel bearing, or a tight handbrake. They all put extra load on the engine and waste gas. A brake shoe, for instance, may have the proper clearance at the toe end, but the heel end may drag for a long time because of an improper anchor adjustment.
I see. Let's check the brakes and bearings at the same time by jacking up the wheels and giving them a spin, okay?
Sure.
Uh-oh. That shoe is dragging. We better check the adjustment to relieve it.
Yeah, and while we're at it, check the clearance of the handbrake at the anchor. It should be 20 thousandths.
That's what it measures, Lloyd. Well, how about that gas test to see how much good we've done?
Okay, Nick. Coming, Tech?
Sure. This just another gas test, Lloyd?
Yeah, plus one other thing. I'm anxious to hear a very slight ping at wide-open throttle acceleration in high gear with a thoroughly warm engine. That way, I'll know we have timing advanced to the point where the engine will give the best combination of economy and performance.
What if you don't hear it, Lloyd?
Well, we'll just stop the car and set the timing up.
Yep. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that ping. But you got it this time. Yeah, hear that?
Yeah, and these figures show we've darn good mileage. The doctor's going to be pretty well satisfied. And it's all right now, Doc. The things we found wrong were dirty plugs, badly fitted breaker points, late timing, a high float level, and a dragging brake.
Sounds like a major operation.
Well, not really, Doc. Each one in itself didn't amount to much, but altogether they robbed your engine of pep and extra mileage. That's why we gave your car a complete tune-up. There's no single thing that affects economy. It's always a combination of a lot of little things. Now, with the improvement in economy, you of course get improvement in performance. As far as the engine is concerned, good economy and good performance go together. You don't get one without the other.
Well, Lars, you've certainly done a thorough job. You know, we dentists always tell our patients to see us at least twice a year. Maybe I should practice what I preach and bring my car to you for a complete checkup regularly.
Well, Nick, whether that dentist knows it or not, he sure is selling out for